So we're here at Content Marketing World with Scott Monty, who is the CEO and co-managing partner of Brain Trust, and also an old friend of Flipboards.
I am.
Nice to see you again, Scott.
It's good to be here.
So what are you here to talk about?
So a couple of things, really. The first is just an individual session where I'm talking about how to create an email newsletter and retain and attract an audience. Okay, so that was the first thing. And then Brain Trust is presenting an industry lab about automotive and the future of transportation.
Okay.
Kind of a 5-hour in-depth workshop. Between the two, we're kind of looking at both ends of the spectrum, between the broader kind of strategic keynote and the more specific tactical, how to go to market type stuff.
So let's talk about your email, because I think that's one of the things
Sure.
that you're best known for. Can you tell our audience about that?
Okay, so I've got an email newsletter I've been doing for, I think about 4 years or so. It's called the Full Monty, and that was suggested to me by Scott Stratton. Actually, it used to be called This Week in Digital, and the point is it's a recap of things that are going on in the industry, whether it's artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicles, platform developments, industry news about communications and marketing, even things like the security and regulatory process around information sharing and privacy and things like that. And as Brain Trust was founded a year ago, we made this more of a Brain Trust publication. So I've got my colleagues contributing to it. And the way we put it out every week is we take all of these links, and we just so happen to house all of the links throughout the week in Flipboard, which we found to be incredibly useful. And we throw the newsletter together, we edit it, obviously provide some commentary, and save people time from having to sort through all of the digital news on their own. We provide it in a curated, succinct form every single Monday.
So does that mean that the email format is still hot? Are you still hot on that format?
Yeah, it seems to go against the grain that in this day and age of apps and chat devices and mobile apps and you name it, that email would be relevant still. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But it turns out whether you register for Facebook or Instagram or any social platform that sends you notifications, what do they all require? An email address. Right? So we figure email is more guaranteed to get your attention and to get to its intended destination than a social update. Right, where you are completely dependent on the algorithm. Right. Instead, it goes directly to your inbox because you've invited it in. You have a chance to actually have a dialogue, and as far as a marketer goes, you can do a lot more in terms of segmenting and hyper-targeting and really developing a relationship.
How can you build an email list? What are some tips you have about that?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to demonstrate that you're providing value in some way. That somebody, if you're asking somebody to give up information of theirs, their email address, it's a very private kind of thing. If you're giving me your email address, well then what am I guaranteeing you as a result? And it doesn't matter whether it's a white paper, whether it's a trade show, whether it's a newsletter. There has to be some kind of value exchange there.
Right.
Further, I think you need to deliver on whatever it was that you promised. If you said you're going to send them something every week, then you better send them something every week, and not annoy them in other ways unless you got their permission. Really, so I think it's the ultimate in proving out what trust means.
Yeah.
Right. If you can demonstrate trust and value, then you'll have earned the right to have those followers, and they in turn will tell other people about you. Let's not forget that one of the earliest viral sensations out there was Hotmail. And they gave you so many accounts to give away. They appended a signature to everyone's email that told people what Hotmail was, and that's how it spread.
Incredible.
Right?
Incredible. What trends are you seeing these days in email marketing or otherwise?
Well, I think there is the danger of overburdening people's inboxes.
Yep.
So you need to understand that the frequency needs to be right for people. I don't know too many dailies that make it, unless they're news-based. believe it or not, the New York Times, the failing New York Times, has 13 million subscribers to 50 email newsletters. That's insane, right? But what they've seen with that subscribership is that's more likely to drive engagement on the NewYorkTimes.com website. Or, the next phase is to drive more digital subscriptions. Right? So there's a reason behind that. And people are inviting the New York Times in a variety of ways. Not everyone's going to take every one of those 50 email newsletters. They're going to find the ones that work for them. So you're seeing more of this hyper-targeting, right? And specific vertical niches for what matters. And people are really grokking that.
What do you read to stay inspired, and what do you read to fuel the full Monty?
Oh my gosh. Well, as an undergraduate at university, I was a classics major. And I think what that made me appreciate is that there are ideas that have been around for thousands of years. And they still have the same basis in fact, and they understand human condition. So my reading not only takes me from current events, what's going on in our industry, but I also like to leaf back through some of the old favorites. And there's some sites that actually help me do that. Like, Maria Popova has a newsletter called Brain Pickings. And she does an amazing job of looking back at Thoreau and Seneca and, people from, whether it's 2 generations past or hundreds of generations past, and really extrapolating those ideas. A similar one I like is called Farnham Street. The site is Farnham Street. The newsletter is Brain Food. Same thing. He is a voracious reader, and I feel like he reads, so I don't have to. Right? He provides me a digest of what it is, what he's thinking about, and if I want to chase it down, he actually keeps a reading list of all the things that he's read through that year, and he goes through, I want to say 7 to 10 books a week.
Wow.
Right? Wow. Yeah. So I'm not about to do that, right? But if I can cherry pick the ones that I think will matter to me, I love doing that.
What's next for you?
What's next? My goodness. Well, fourth quarter, always very busy at Brain Trust. We're seeing a lot of clients and potential clients come to us talking about digital transformation and everything that means. And to them, digital transformation can be anything from our social accounts connected to our email, connected to our systems overall, or it could mean how are we readdressing how we do business and our operations and our team structure and all the systems that support that. We're working with companies like Walmart and McDonald's and GE, the largest Honda dealership in the country. So, we've got some really interesting assignments, and I think it keeps us fresh and on point.
Cool. Are you still into Sherlock?
Sherlock Holmes. Well, sure. How could I not be, right? Believe it or not, I just celebrated the 10th year of my Sherlock Holmes podcast.
Congratulations.
And thank you. As if that wasn't enough, I added another one to that.
What is it?
So we do this bi-monthly show called I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, which is just interviews with people that are doing things in the world of Sherlock Holmes, authors, actors, and the like. The other one we added is a weekly podcast that's only about 10 or 15 minutes long, and we talk about something that we picked up in the story, some bit of minutia that pops out to us, and we go, well, what does that mean in today's terminology, or where do we see a certain character going? So it's really designed to bring in more people that are reading the stories rather than people that appreciate the hobby.
How big is this community, this Sherlock community?
It's funny because there are a core group of people around the country, I would say that number in, maybe the tens of thousands that belong to their different community groups and whatnot. But when you get out and find people on Tumblr and on Twitter that follow Elementary and that follow Sherlock on the BBC, you're probably talking about millions.
That's so cool. Is there anything that you love as much as Sherlock?
Well, I love my family more than anything. But in terms of a hobby, it's interesting because there are so many different kinds of people into Sherlock Holmes. They also have other interests, and
Yeah.
I've come to appreciate some of those as well. Things like Winston Churchill, P.G. Wodehouse, even the Titanic, believe it or not. I befriended someone 20 years ago, and he said, do you know anything about the Titanic Historical Society? I'm like, I had no idea something like that existed, right? Same thing as Sherlock Holmes. It's people that really like the Titanic. That has a more limited shelf life, right?
Yeah.
And had a more limited time on this earth
Yeah.
than Sherlock Holmes did. But that was back in the day when there were still survivors of the Titanic
Wow.
who would come to their annual conventions.
Wow.
So it was like a connection to the past.
Well, Scott, it's always so great to see you. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to sit on the red couch.